Did I ruin my friend's wedding memory with one haircut? I'm a 25-year-old woman who has always loved having very short hair. It has been my style since I was a child, and I have always felt the most like myself that way. A close friend of mine, who is 24, got engaged a few years ago and asked me to stand beside her as her maid of honor. While we were preparing for her wedding, she showed me a collection of hairstyles she had carefully gathered over a long time. Almost every look she loved involved long, flowing hair, with only a couple of shorter styles that felt like they had been added at the last moment. Even though she tried to sound open-minded, I could tell she truly preferred long hair, especially since her partner also wore their hair far past their shoulders. I wanted her date to feel perfect, so I offered to grow my hair out and even consider extensions. I had not had long hair since I was about 10 years old, so I was curious to see how it would look anyway. What I thought would be a short-term change stretched into nearly 3 years because the wedding kept getting delayed. By the time the ceremony finally arrived in early spring, my hair had grown down to my chest. I spent months learning how to braid and style it, and on the wedding day I wore a carefully arranged updo that matched the rest of the bridal group. Once everything was over, I felt ready to return to myself. I cut all my hair off into the short style I had always loved. I felt relieved and happy, like I had stepped back into my own skin. I shared a photo online with a light-hearted caption about being back to my usual look. Soon after, several people messaged me asking if I had only grown my hair out for the wedding. I did not think much of it and casually told them that my friend preferred long hair, assuming they were just curious. A week later, I saw my friend, and her reaction caught me completely off guard. She was deeply upset and accused me of making her seem demanding and controlling. She said people had started to believe she forced me to change my appearance for her wedding, something she had never asked me to do. Until that moment, she had no idea I had made that choice because of her preference. I tried to explain everything and even reached out to others to correct the misunderstanding, but the situation only grew worse. Many people now think I'm covering for her, and she has stopped speaking to me altogether. Now I'm left wondering how something I did out of kindness turned into such a painful situation. Did I handle this poorly, or did this spiral beyond what anyone could have expected? Should I give away my bonus to keep the peace in the family? I'm a 29-year-old woman working as a hospital nurse, and my partner, who is 33, works in the same field. My partner's brother, who is a few years older than me, also works as a nurse. We live on opposite sides of the country, but all three of us have taken short-term work placements over the past several years. At my most recent job, I had an excellent recruiter, so I decided to recommend my partner's brother to the agency. When I first joined, my partner had recommended me, so I knew how the process worked. The company offers a reward of about $900 to the person who makes the referral after the new hire completes a set period, while the new hire receives a smaller amount of around $300. For the past few weeks, my partner's brother had been making casual but pointed comments, saying things like we should send him the referral money or split it with him. He believed my partner would be receiving the reward, not realizing it was actually going to me. I chose to stay out of it at first and let my partner handle the comments, assuming it would fade away. Instead, everything escalated once he reached the required number of weeks at his placement and received his portion. As soon as that happened, he began messaging my partner repeatedly, insisting that he deserved the full reward because he was the one doing the work. My partner tried to shut it down and explained that I was the one who would be receiving the payment. That is when he turned his attention to me. He began sending me messages saying the money should belong to him and that it was unfair for me to keep it. I told him clearly that without my recommendation, he would not have received any extra payment at all, and that this was simply how the system worked. The company pays the person who brings in a new worker more because they helped their business. I stopped replying after that, thinking the situation would settle. Instead, the next day took a much harsher turn. He began sending angry messages to my partner, saying that he should leave me and calling me difficult and selfish, along with other hurtful comments. My partner became furious and defended me, and since then, his brother has cut off contact with both of us. Now I'm left feeling torn. Part of me hates that this has created such a deep conflict within the family and wonders if giving up the money would have avoided all of this. At the same time, it feels wrong to give in after being pressured and insulted over something that was never his to begin with. I cannot help but question whether standing firm was the right choice or if I should have sacrificed the money to keep the peace. Did one comment about hair turn my coworker against me? I am a 26-year-old woman working at a tiny marketing firm with only 6 people on the team. Because of how small it is, we have all become close over time. We spend long hours together every day, and it is normal for us to grab drinks after work and talk about everything going on in our lives. It has always felt easy and friendly, which is why what happened recently has been so unsettling. Near the end of last week, I decided to try something different with my hair and came into the office wearing it in 2 neat braids. I felt good about it and was excited to switch things up. When I walked in, one of my coworkers, who I will call Melissa, immediately looked at me and said she had never noticed how thin my hair was before. Her tone caught me a little off guard, but I was not hurt. My hair has always been fine, and I have never been sensitive about it. I laughed it off and responded in a light way, saying that she had similar hair and that we matched. The moment the words left my mouth, the atmosphere shifted in a way I did not expect. Her expression hardened instantly, and she snapped at me to leave her alone in a harsh tone that felt completely out of proportion. I stood there confused, trying to understand what I had said wrong, especially since she had made the exact same observation about me first. From that point on, she barely acknowledged me for the rest of the day. Over the next several days, things only grew more tense. She has continued to avoid me entirely, refusing to speak to me even when work requires it. What has made it worse is hearing from others on the team that she has been talking about me behind my back, painting the situation as if I insulted her out of nowhere. I was even told she plans to bring a complaint to our manager when he returns, claiming I crossed a line at work. Now I feel stuck in a situation that has spiraled far beyond what I ever intended. One of my coworkers quietly suggested that I apologize just to calm things down, but I cannot shake the feeling that I did nothing wrong, especially since I only echoed what she said to me. At the same time, I can feel the tension spreading through the office, and it is starting to affect everyone. I am left wondering if standing my ground is worth a fallout, or if saying sorry for something I do not believe was wrong is the only way to bring things back to normal. Was I wrong to take over cleaning our shared bedroom? I am a 41-year-old man, and I have been married to my wife, who is 43, for nearly 2 decades. Over the past several years, our financial situation improved, and we moved into a larger home filled with nicer belongings. Around that same time, something in our daily life began to change in a way I did not expect. My wife started setting aside items in our bedroom, saying she would deal with them later. At first, it was a few small stacks, nothing that seemed concerning. But over time, those stacks grew into large piles that now cover most of the floor. I would say nearly 3/4 of the room became unusable. I have to carefully move things just to reach my dresser, and the only clear space left is the small area beside my side of the bed. To be clear, the situation has never involved anything unsafe. There are no odors, no damage, and no issues beyond the clutter itself. The rest of the house is completely normal. The bedroom, however, has become a place that feels overwhelming to me. Despite this, my wife has been very firm that I should not touch any of it, insisting it is her space to manage. One autumn, after a long discussion, I finally convinced her to tackle the room. I took full responsibility for our children for several days so she could focus without interruption. When it was finished, the room felt completely transformed. She even admitted how good it felt and suggested we could make it a yearly habit. That moment gave me hope that we had found a solution. But when the next year came around and I gently reminded her, she refused. She said it was her space and that I had no right to push her about it. That was when I started to feel truly frustrated. To me, this is a shared room, and living in that level of disorder was becoming harder and harder. After one unrelated disagreement, she left the house for a long walk, clearly upset. In that moment, I made a decision that I knew might cause problems. I gathered everything from the bedroom and moved it into the garage, placing it all on a large sheet. When she returned and saw what I had done, she was furious. Over the next few days, I carefully sorted everything into groups, separating what seemed like waste from what could be kept or donated. I made sure she had the final say on every item, but the process still caused tension. In the end, we cleared out a large amount of unnecessary belongings, and the room was usable again. This year, I decided to set a clear boundary. I told her that if the room is not cleaned at least once by mid-October, I will step in and do it myself. I explained that I am only asking for one day each year where the space we share is clear and comfortable. She was upset by this and said it felt controlling, though she did eventually clean the room again. Now I am left wondering if I pushed too far. I feel like I asked for something small in a space we both live in, but I also know I went against her wishes in a big way before. Is it wrong to insist on this one newly reset, or did I cross a line that cannot be justified? Did I go too far trying to help a stray cat? I am someone who spends a lot of time in my garage, where I have a television set up and often chat with neighbours passing by. A few weeks ago, a young black cat wandered in and made itself comfortable. It had bright amber eyes and a friendly nature, but something about it felt off. It was wearing a thick metal chain around its neck that looked tight and unsafe, not the kind designed for cats. There was no tag or any way to identify an owner. The cat seemed desperate for food. When I offered some dry kibble, it ate so fast that it scattered pieces everywhere. That alone made me think it had not been properly cared for. We also live near a very busy road, and the cat showed no fear of traffic, which worried me. When it stayed in my garage for hours without leaving, I decided to keep it overnight to prevent it from getting hurt. The next day, I tried to do the responsible thing. I posted notices online, checked local community pages, and even took the cat to a nearby shelter to scan for a tracking chip. There was no chip and no one came forward. I waited a full week, hoping someone would claim it, but I heard nothing. Based on that, I believed I was dealing with a stray or an abandoned animal. Wanting to do what I thought was right, I scheduled an appointment with the veterinarian to have the cat neutered. I had always understood that this helps reduce aggressive behaviour and prevents more unwanted animals from being born. After the recovery period, I released the cat back outside, hoping it would adapt like other roaming cats in the neighbourhood. That same day, everything changed. A young man came to my door and told me the cat belonged to him. I explained everything I had done to try to find the owner, but he did not seem interested in that effort. Instead, he was upset because he had planned to use the cat for breeding. He told me I had no right to make that decision. I responded that if the cat had proper identification, none of this would have happened. Now I am left questioning myself. I truly believed I was helping an animal that seemed neglected and at risk, but I also made a permanent decision about a pet that was not mine. Was I acting responsibly for the situation, or did I cross a line that cannot be undone? Did our dream trip turn into errands for her family? I am a 37-year-old man, and for as long as I can remember, visiting Japan had been one of my biggest dreams. Growing up, I was obsessed with shows like Dragon Ball Z, and over the years that grew into a deep interest in anime and gaming culture. I always imagined Japan as this incredible place that felt far ahead of the rest of the world. So when I finally had the chance to go, it meant a lot to me. I am currently here with my wife, who is 36, along with 3 of her friends. At first, everything seemed fine. Her closest friend goes along with whatever she plans, and the other 2 are kind enough not to question anything. But as the trip went on, I started to notice a pattern that completely shifted the experience for me. My wife had taken on the task of buying items for her brother and sister. They had specific requests, and whether she volunteered or felt expected to do it, I'm not entirely sure. What I do know is that fulfilling these requests started taking over our entire trip. One day in particular pushed me over the edge. We spent hours travelling to a well-known shopping district just to visit a specific shoe store because her brother wanted a custom hair. It was not a quick visit either. We left in the morning and ended up stuck there into the evening, waiting for the customization to be completed. The entire day revolved around this one errand. Meanwhile, I watched the hours slip away from what I had hoped would be time spent exploring the things I had dreamed about for years. It did not stop there. Her sister wanted to design a bag, and because Japan is known for high-quality second-hand luxury items, we spent multiple days visiting different shops. Each stop involved video calls, showing options, waiting for approval, and then moving on to the next place if it was not exactly right. Even though they planned to pay us back, it felt like we were acting as personal shoppers rather than enjoying our own trip. By the time I finally tried to carve out a moment for myself and suggested we visit an area known for anime and gaming, it was too late. The places I had been looking forward to had already closed for the day. I ended up standing there feeling frustrated and disappointed, realizing that something I had waited years for was slipping away because of someone else's priorities. That was when I told my wife I was going to speak directly to her family and make it clear that this situation was not acceptable. I said I did not care how they reacted because this trip was supposed to be for us, not for running errands on their behalf. She reacted immediately and accused me of disrespecting her family, saying I had no right to speak about them that way. The conversation quickly turned into an argument about loyalty and boundaries. Now I feel stuck between wanting to stand up for myself and not wanting to create a bigger conflict. I cannot shake the feeling that this trip has been taken away from me, but I also wonder if confronting her family would only make things worse. Should I have kept quiet and just gone along with it, or was I right to finally push back? Am I wrong for expecting my missing cookies to be replaced? I am a 29-year-old woman, and recently I ordered a few boxes of seasonal cookies through a coworker who was selling them on behalf of her granddaughter. I paid for 3 boxes in total. 1 was for me, and the other 2 were for coworkers who had already given me money to pick them up for them. I assumed I would receive the order directly from the person I paid, so I did not think much more about it. A few days later, another coworker approached me and said he had been given my cookies to pass along. That was the first time I realized there had been a handoff I was never told about. He explained that he had taken the cookies home along with his own, and while they were there, his teenage son ended up eating one of the boxes. When he handed me what was left, I only received a single box, the one I had ordered for myself. What made things more confusing was that he insisted he had only been given 2 boxes to begin with. That did not line up with what I had paid for, so I reached out to the original coworker who sold them to me. She confirmed that she had given him all 3 boxes. Now I am stuck in the middle of 2 conflicting stories, and I am the one left short. The real issue is that 2 of those boxes were not even mine. I had collected money from other people, and now I either have to replace what they paid for out of my own pocket or explain a situation that sounds messy and unprofessional. None of this was within my control, and yet I am the one dealing with the consequences. I feel like someone should take responsibility, especially since the cookies were handed off without my knowledge to someone who did not ensure they reached me safely. At the same time, I am wondering if I am expecting too much by asking for a replacement or a refund, or if it is reasonable to push back instead of quietly absorbing the loss myself. Am I wrong for sending my child in cheap clothes to my ex? I am a father in my mid-30s, and I share custody of my child with my former partner. During the week, my child lives with me, and on weekends they stay with their mother. I earn more than she does, and since my child spends most of their time with me, I make sure they have a full wardrobe of good quality clothes at my home. There is no financial support arrangement between us since I have primary care. At first, everything seemed normal. When I picked my child up after the weekend, I would wash whatever they had been wearing and send those same clothes back in their bag for the next visit. Over time, though, I started to notice something strange. The nicer outfits I sent my child then were not coming back. It was not obvious at first, but eventually I realized that a significant portion of their wardrobe had disappeared. When I asked my former partner about it, things escalated quickly. Instead of resolving it calmly, she claimed the clothes were hers and that I had no right to ask for them back. It turned into a serious dispute that even involved legal representatives. I had to gather proof of purchase to show that I had bought those items. After a long and frustrating process, she was told to return them. That experience left a lasting impression on me. Since then, I have changed how I handle things. When my child goes to their mother's place, I now send them in older outfits, less expensive items or clothes that originally came from her home. These are things I do not mind losing if they do not come back. Recently, she sent me a message saying I was being unfair and harsh by doing this. She argued that since I earn more, I should not worry about losing a few outfits and should just let her keep them. I told her plainly that if she wants our child to have nicer clothes at her place, she is capable of buying them herself. From my point of view, I already went through the trouble of replacing what was taken once, and I am not willing to repeat the situation. When I spoke to my sister about it, she said I was being petty and should just let it go to keep things peaceful. That made me question myself. I do not feel like I am doing anything wrong, but I also do not want my actions to affect my child or create more conflict than necessary. Should I handle this differently, or is it reasonable to protect what I have already paid for? Was I too harsh telling her she isn't ready for a child? I am a woman in my late 50s, and I make it a point to stay close with my family. About once a month, I meet up with my daughters and their partners for a meal or something fun. One of my daughters-in-law, who I will call Megan, and I have always had a decent relationship. We are not extremely close, but we have gotten along well over the years. Megan has never learned how to drive. She struggles with anxiety and has avoided it for a long time. Because of that, my son usually drives her everywhere she needs to go. When he cannot, I often step in to help. Public transportation in our area is not very reliable, and rides to car services are expensive, which makes things more complicated for them financially. Recently, we all met for dinner like we usually do. During the meal, Megan casually shared that she and my son were planning to have a baby. I was surprised, and I must have shown it on my face without realizing. I did not say anything at the table, and the conversation moved on. After dinner, I drove her home since my son was not available. On the way, she kept asking me why I reacted the way I did earlier. At first, I tried to brush it off, but she kept pressing me again and again. Eventually, I told her the truth. I said I did not think she was ready to have a child, mainly because she cannot drive and depends heavily on others to get around. I pointed out that I was the one driving her home at that very moment and asked what would happen if my son was away for work. I questioned how she would handle emergencies or even routine things like doctor visits with a child. I mentioned that relying on me or expensive rides did not seem like a solid plan, especially given their financial situation. What followed was a heated argument. She told me I was being disrespectful and that I did not see her as capable or independent. I stood by what I said, explaining that my concerns were practical, not personal. Still, she was deeply upset and called me hurtful before getting out of the car. Later, my son called and asked me to apologize, not just for how I said it, but also to support their decision to start a family. I am struggling with the request because I genuinely do not believe it is a good idea right now. At the same time, I can see how my words may have hurt her. Now I am left wondering if I crossed a line by being so direct, or if I was right to speak honestly when she kept pushing for an answer. Was I wrong for refusing to share my vacation space? I am a woman in my early 40s who recently went through a difficult separation after more than a decade of marriage. It took time, therapy, and a lot of effort to feel like myself again, but I finally reached a place where I feel strong, independent, and genuinely happy. As part of that, I decided I did not want to give up the parts of life I enjoyed before, including traveling. So I planned a getaway with a few close friends. I invited 5 women, and 3 were able to join. One friend, who I will call Lauren, declined at the time because she already had other trips planned and limited time off. That was completely fine. I moved forward with the plans, found a rental house with 4 bedrooms so each of us could have our own space, and we booked everything. Flights were arranged, rooms were assigned, and we were all looking forward to it. A month before the trip, Lauren called and said one of her other vacations had been cancelled, so she was now free to join us. I was happy she wanted to come and immediately offered to help her find a nearby place to stay, either another rental or hotel close to ours. That is when things took an unexpected turn. She became upset and asked why she could not stay with us. I explained that every room was already taken, something she already knew since I had shared all the details while planning. She then suggested that I give up my private room so we could share one of the larger rooms together. I told her honestly that I did not want to do that. After spending many years sharing a bedroom in my marriage, I have grown used to having my own space again, and it has become important to me. The other women felt the same way, especially since many of them rarely get time away from their families. Instead of accepting that, she reached out to the others directly to ask if they would share their rooms. Each of them declined and offered the same solution I had, which was for her to stay nearby so we could all still spend time together during the trip. Despite that, she has now stopped speaking to all of us. What makes this harder is that she is someone who often travels alone because she prefers not to compromise with others. She had her own room planned for the trip that fell through, so it is not as though we are asking something unusual of her. Still, I cannot ignore the tension this has created. Part of me feels guilty that I am not more upset about her reaction, but another part of me feels like I have worked too hard to regain my sense of peace to give it up now. I keep wondering if I should have just given in to avoid conflict, or if it is reasonable to hold onto the boundaries I set from the start, even if it cost me a friendship. Was I rude for snapping about my lunch at work? I am someone who has always been a bit private about what I eat, and for reasons I cannot fully explain, it really bothers me when people comment on my food. Even simple remarks or questions can make me feel uncomfortable, almost like I am being judged or put on display. Because of that, I usually avoid eating around others and prefer to have my lunch alone. Until recently, I managed that by eating in my car during breaks. It was quiet and no one asked me anything. But after some landscaping work removed the shade from my usual parking spot, sitting in the car became unbearable, so I started using the break room again. That is where the issue began. There is a coworker who loves talking about food. She is always asking people what they brought, how they made it, and sharing her own ideas. Every day since I started eating inside again, she has spent several minutes asking me questions about my lunch. At first, I tried to tolerate it, but it kept happening over and over, and I found myself getting more irritated each time. Yesterday, it reached a breaking point. As soon as I sat down, she began asking the usual questions about what I had made, whether I cooked it myself, and how often I prepared that kind of meal. Without really thinking, I responded by asking why she was so focused on my food and said that I just wanted to eat quietly without having to explain everything on my plate. I tried to keep my tone light, but I meant what I said. She immediately looked hurt, apologized in a short way, and left the room. Since then, she has been distant and barely speaking to me. Now I am left wondering if I handled it poorly. I do not regret wanting space, but I also did not expect things to turn so tense. Was I wrong for speaking up the way I did, or was it fair to set a boundary even if it came out a bit sharp? Was I wrong for asking kids not to turn the park into a slip slide? I am a parent to a 3-year-old, and one of our daily routines is walking to the nearby park because she absolutely loves the slide. It is her favourite part of the playground, and it is something simple that makes her really happy. Recently, though, what should have been a normal outing turned into a frustrating experience. When we arrived at the park, there were a couple of groups of adults sitting on the grass while their children played nearby. At first, everything seemed typical, but as we got closer, we realised something was off. The kids were dressed for water play and had poured water and soap all over every slide. They had essentially turned the entire play area into a slippery surface, and they were taking turns racing down and sliding off into the wood chips at the bottom. It immediately raised concerns for us. Not only did we not want our daughter soaked in soapy water, but we were also worried about her safety. Watching older children slide at high speed and get thrown off at the bottom made it clear that it could easily lead to someone getting hurt. We tried to make the best of it by drying off one slide and standing nearby so she could use it safely. One of the kids even helped briefly, but overall, the situation did not change. The parents of those children stayed where they were, watching but not stepping in, even as the kids kept going back for more soap and water. We made a few polite comments, hoping they would realize that what they were doing was affecting everyone else trying to use the park, but we were ignored. We chose not to push it further in a moment because we did not want to create a scene in front of our child. Later, I shared the experience in a local online group, asking neighbours to be more mindful when using shared spaces. I suggested that activities like that might be better suited for places designed for water play, so that everyone could enjoy the park safely. Instead of understanding, the response was surprisingly negative. Many people defended the behaviour, saying children should just be allowed to have fun and suggesting we should have let our daughter join in. That reaction left me questioning everything. I understand wanting kids to enjoy themselves, but it felt like the entire space had been taken over in a way that excluded others. Now I am wondering if I was being too strict, or if it is reasonable to expect some level of consideration in a shared public place. Did I push too hard to fix my child's unfair math grade? I am a father of a 10-year-old girl who is in elementary school, and math has been a real struggle for her this year. She has had a particularly hard time with multiplication and division, and things only became more confusing once her class started working with larger numbers. We tried extra help through the school, but it did not seem to make much of a difference. The method they were teaching in class involved breaking numbers into parts, drawing boxes, and then combining everything at the end. For my daughter, that process just did not click. She would get most of it wrong and end up frustrated. At home, I decided to show her a different approach, the one I had learned when I was her age. Almost immediately, something changed. She started to understand what she was doing, and her homework became far less stressful. She was finally able to solve the problems correctly and felt more confident. Then came a test that changed everything. She came home upset, saying she had received a very low mark. When I looked at the test, I was shocked. She had only made 2 mistakes out of a large number of questions, yet her score was barely above half. It did not make sense at all. When I spoke with her teacher, I was told that the issue was not the answers but the method. Because my daughter had not used the specific technique taught in class, most of her work was marked wrong. I pointed out that the test only required students to show their work, not follow one exact process. The teacher stood firm and even warned that future tests could receive a 0 if the method was not followed. That response did not sit well with me. I felt like my daughter was being punished for finally understanding the material in a way that worked for her. So I went to the school administration and made it clear that I believed the grading was unfair. I will admit that I was persistent and did not let the issue drop. Eventually, a meeting was held and the decision was made to adjust her grade to reflect her correct answers. They also confirmed that going forward, she would be allowed to solve problems in any clear way as long as she showed her work. While this resolved the issue for my daughter, it created tension elsewhere. The teacher was clearly unhappy with the outcome, and my partner believes I made the situation bigger than it needed to be. She keeps saying that teachers have a lot on their plate and that I may have crossed a line by pushing so hard. Now I am left wondering if I did the right thing by standing up for my child, or if I went too far and created unnecessary conflict in the process. Was I wrong for refusing to cackle a customer's wife? I am a 33-year-old man working as a cook in a restaurant where the kitchen is fully open, so guests can see us and even talk to us while we prepare food. A couple of days ago, during a slow moment, a man walked up to our station and asked for what he called a favour. He said his wife would be walking past soon and wanted us to whistle at her and call out compliments as she passed by. There were 3 of us working that station at the time. Before I could even react, one of my coworkers quickly agreed on behalf of all of us. As soon as the man left, the other cook and I made it clear that we were not comfortable with what had just been promised. We told him directly that we would not be taking part, but he seemed annoyed and insisted that it had already been agreed to. We reminded him that he had spoken for himself, not for us. A few minutes later, a server came by and said the woman was about to walk past. It seemed like several people and staff already knew about what was supposed to happen. When she finally walked by, she carried herself with confidence, almost like she was expecting the attention. A coworker who had agreed started whistling and cheering, while the 2 of us stayed focused on our work and said nothing. After she sat down, the reaction from some of the staff caught me off guard. The coworker who participated, along with a few servers, criticized us for not joining in. They said we had made the moment awkward and taken the fun out of it. From my perspective, it did not feel like harmless fun. I was uncomfortable participating in something like that, especially given how it could be perceived coming from me in that setting. It felt like a situation that could easily be misunderstood or cross the line regardless of what the husband intended. Since then, the atmosphere at work has been tense, and it feels like some people think I overreacted. I cannot help but wonder if I should have just gone along with it to avoid the conflict, or if standing my ground was the right choice even if it made things uncomfortable.